Welcome to Wildly Wealthy Life, the show that's all about exploring the different paths to a life of freedom and fulfillment and how that ripples through your personal life, family life, and to the community. Join husband and wife power couple Lee and Kat Hughes as they share people's stories from different backgrounds and lifestyles about what it means to live a life well lived. Tune in and take that first step to becoming the best version of yourself, personally and professionally, here on Wildly Wealthy Life.
So I challenge everyone who's listening. The way you look at something is the way it actually is. I don't know how to explain this. Two people can look at the U.S. and look at it totally differently. One person can see the U.S. as there's no opportunity. There's such a disparity of wealth. I mean, the top 1% have everything. And you can have me or my father saying, this is the best country on the planet. I can actually have opportunity here. And I think that's what had the immigrants, they have that edge because they come here, they risk everything. And it's funny, as they get older, my mom was saying to me, you can't take risks. And I'm like, Ma, you came to this country, you couldn't speak a language, you worked 2 jobs, and now you're telling me I can't buy an apartment building? I mean, think of the logic of that. I mean, you left everything, right? So I think that's what immigrants have over people who are born here. I think they're hungrier. I think they look at this as the land of opportunity. As we're being told that this is an evil country and we're trying to rewrite history, you still have people trying to cross the border. You still have immigrants trying to come here and refugees. There's a reason why, because there is opportunity.
Welcome again to Wildly Wealthy Life. My name is Lee, and here's my lovely wife and co-host, Katrina, also really referred to as Kat. She's amazing.
All right. Well, we have Gino Barbaro today on our podcast, and really excited to have Gino because not only is he an amazing family man, he is, first and foremost, he's an amazing family man on top of all the things that he's doing. He's an entrepreneur. He is a real estate educator, a life coach. He owns over 1,500 units. He's an author. And so I'm really excited to just dive in with Gino today. And so Gino, how are you doing today?
Thanks, guys, for having me on. I'm doing great. How are you?
We're doing well.
Really good.
We just want to kind of know, how did you get started with, building wealth, and what are you doing right now? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I started building wealth when I was born. I mean, I was lucky. I had parents that were immigrants, and money was always a central topic. It was always, they came here from Italy. They came here for a better life. And it was always drilled into me, save, save, save. That delayed gratification was always instilled in me. And I was happy saving money as a young person. I wasn't happy spending it, right? So it was just part of my DNA. And that might be foreign to a lot of people now, but that's how it was 40, 50 years ago. And it wasn't as easy as it is now to spend money back then. You actually had to go to a store. Actually, you had to get to a store. So I had to ride my bike to get to a store. I didn't have Amazon. So it's dangerous nowadays, the way you save money. So for me, I grew up in that household. My dad owned the restaurant. So I went into the restaurant business, following his footsteps. I went to college, but back in the 90s, there was something called a recession. We haven't had a recession in over a decade now. It's been, the 2010, 2020, I think is one of the only decades, I think, in history that there hasn't been a recession. So, we quickly forget, but back in the 90s, I couldn't find a job. So I went to work for AIG, and that was so boring. It was reinsurance accounting. It was like the most boring thing ever, dude. It was like watching paint dry. But, it was a good experience. I knew right then and there that I wasn't a fit for corporate America. So I went and opened a restaurant with my family, and I loved it. I've had it for about 25 years. We just actually sold the restaurant. My brother did back 2 weeks ago, believe it or not. So it was a long process. I left the restaurant in 2016, but before I left, back in 2007, 2008, the Great Recession came. And that's when I knew I was stuck. I was, the middle-age crisis. I didn't want a Porsche. I didn't want a Ferrari. I just wanted to do something that I enjoyed to do. And there wasn't anything out there that I enjoyed at the time. I was working there. It was a 9-to-5 rat race. You work for the week, you get paid. You do it next week. You hope it doesn't snow so you don't lose, a day's pay. And I was stuck. I had a big family. I had to feed them. And I was thinking to myself, I need to do something. So I ended up looking into multifamily. I got partnered up with Jake, fortunately. And I don't want to say the rest is history, but there was a lot of learning lessons, a lot of coaching, a lot of training, a lot of investing in my education. All that took progress. And it's like, having kids. The first child is difficult. Really, it's really hard. You don't know what you're doing. The second one is a little bit easier. Still hard, still challenging. The third one is this is not bad. I really like this. This is a cool experience. The fourth one is like, this is fun. I mean, I can enjoy this now. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. My life is a little crazy. The fifth one is like, all right, this is like, I mean, this is great. I love this. And the sixth one is like, it's like you're playing with house money, right? I mean, I wish I could have, I'd love to have more. I mean, I'm all game. My wife is just, yeah, I'd love to. I really would. It's like, it's like multifamily, right? But I mean, like, so I love the name of the podcast, wealthy, right? What does wealth mean to everybody? It's a different connotation to everybody. And when I was younger, my connotation of wealth was go out there and make as much money as possible. And it's all about your balance sheet. And honestly, it's an important aspect of it. It's an important element of it. But ironically, when you stop focusing on trying to make wealth and trying to serve others, that's when you start becoming wealthy. That's when you really start making the money. Because when you can, and it's so hard because when you're stuck in the rat race, really thinking about who? You're thinking about yourself. Yeah. And you're only trying to serve your needs and your family's and their person's immediate needs. But when you start becoming quote unquote financially free and you're playing with house money, that word again, and you can go out there and start a community and start helping others and start doing some free calls and start doing some podcasts and start being a role model and start helping other people, then all of a sudden it's easier to create wealth, which is the true irony in life.
Right. And for you, do you remember that shift in your mind and your actions when you made that leap?
For me, I went to coaching school back in 2015. I went to, and I went there for personal development more than anything else. I didn't want to be a life coach. What's a life coach? It sounds like, that foo-foo. But unfortunately, everybody needs to get a life coach because we need the clarity in our lives. We need to know why we're doing something. And for me, why was I at the restaurant? I was there just to make money. And it felt empty. I felt like I wasn't fulfilling my potential. I mean, I had two great parents living in the USA. I'm blaming everything else except for myself. So ultimately, I ended up taking responsibility for my actions. I ended up getting clarity on what I wanted. And that was a shift for me then and there. And I had been doing real estate for a little while, and then it came full circle. I can really make a business out of this. I can create multiple streams of revenue out of this. I can start a podcast and share my story with others. I can start a coaching community with others. And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of progress. But that, I think, was the shift for me, going there and saying, wow, let me see how I can help others. And we're all fearful of that. We're all afraid of sharing our story because we're like, no one's going to listen to me. But you have to remember, there are people that are ahead of you and there are a lot of people that are behind you. So being transparent and being honest and just sharing your story, I think will help it out. And I remember doing the first couple of podcasts. They were terrible. My first couple of YouTube videos, man, I hope I could burn them. They're there forever. But it's one of those things that, you got to remember, everybody, we all stink when we start. Everyone thinks that, everyone becomes a superstar, but I mean, we all start at ground zero. You can learn any skill out there, whether it's sales, negotiation, building a business, having a family. And it's just the willingness to work and the clarity to why you're doing something. Because if you can figure out why you're doing it, when you have a tough day, or you have a terrible podcast, the next one is gonna get done because there's a reason why you're doing it.
And for you too, I mean, what I think you said a little while ago is pretty impactful because you kind of had the shift just 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think if you went back 5 years ago, what you're kind of starting to kick off then and where you're at now, I mean, right behind you, you've got like at least 7 different streams or 7 different entities that you've created.
Yeah. So we those are 4. We have 4 podcasts, 4 weekly shows. I do one with my wife. Yeah. We do Movers and Shakers podcast with our students. Every time a student closes a deal, we like to highlight them. We have a RAND CRE podcast for syndication. And then we have the Wheel Our Profits podcast. And as far as streams of revenue, when I started back in 2013, first deal that Jake and I bought, I had three revenue streams. I had a little fourplex. I had the restaurant business itself, and I had a little private note for $25,000. And now we've built it up to 24 streams of revenue. So it's, different syndications. I have the education platform. I have different properties, different entities. So it doesn't happen overnight, but once the snowball starts, and it's just like everything else in life, it's like planting a seed. I'm a simple person. I like the analogy of a farmer. You plant a seed. You don't expect to have that seed planted and have fruit next 2-3 weeks, right? It takes time and it's a lot of risk. And sometimes God throws some hail and he throws some droughts and we have to figure it out. And it's not life and death here. Like my dad left Italy for that reason because every year something happened. I mean, if the potatoes don't grow in the fall, you don't eat in the winter, basically. Here, if you lose money, you lose money. So you'll make money next year, but you have an experience. And I think people are so fearful of losing instead of gaining that we don't take that risk. And that's what was happening to me. Like, 10 years ago, I'm like, I can't make this investment because I have to shelter this money, that abundance versus scarcity mindset, where if I lose money, what's going to happen? Losing money in a couple of deals was probably the best thing for me because that actually motivated me to go out there and get coached and to learn how to actually invest in multifamily real estate.
Do you think that was one of the biggest things, just the gaining of the knowledge and seeing just how that potential really can be there just by like really putting in the work and planting the seed and doing the work to plow the field and
Yeah. Well, for me, my first investment back, outside in real estate was good 15 years ago. I did a mobile home park with a gentleman, and that deal went well for 6 months. And then after that fell off the cliff. And the reason why was he just was not a good person, but he had been doing it for years. But ultimately, it's all about responsibility. I look back at that and I said, it was my fault because I didn't know the mobile home park space. I didn't do my due diligence with him. I didn't go down and see the property. I didn't know how to underwrite. We didn't create a syndication. It was a syndication. He didn't create one. I didn't even know what one was. So the average person like myself at the time would blame him. And obviously he's culpable, but it takes two people. If I had known, I would have said, I'm not going to invest with you. But it was great that I did. I lost a ton of money. Then 6 months, about a year later, I went and bought a property for myself. That was my second mistake because I bought it a strip mall. Didn't know what I was doing with mixed use. I had that property for 10 years. It was soul sucking. I always tell people no deal is better than a bad deal because it wasn't even about the money that you lose. It's just the energy that it takes from you. It just takes negativity always in your mind. I remember the property manager always calling me. His name comes on my phone. His name is Lou. He's like, we got a problem here. Every week we had a different problem. And it was me. I should have fired him. But that's the things you learn in life and in business that if you don't go through those, I remember having mold situations. I remember having tenants. Now we've been doing it for so many years. It doesn't freak us out anymore because you grow through that, but you have to go through those steps. And for me, learning that and having those experiences just motivated me to go learn and said, you know what, I want to focus on one niche, stay in my lane and get really good at something. And it takes years. It takes a few years for you to actually learn. I mean, you can dramatically increase the learning curve, go out and find a coach, go out and find a mentor, partner with people who are doing it. I did a little bit of all of that, put it together. And then ultimately when I found Jake, which was great because our partnership has been awesome and we're both hard workers. We both know what we want and we both stay focused.
I think what I'm really hearing right now is responsibility. You're taking full responsibility for your actions, not just for your successes, but really also for your mistakes and your failures. And I really love that. And it seems that it's really been ingrained in you, even when you said that you started really building wealth since you were born. I want to go back to that a little bit. I'm really interested in just your parents being immigrants. My parents are actually also immigrants. They moved to the States from the Philippines. And
you're an immigrant.
And I'm also an immigrant. I moved out to the Philippines. I moved up to the States when I was 21. And so I kind of have the same story as far as ever since I was a kid, I was told to save. I think the difference, we also interviewed another person, one of our guests who's also an immigrant. And it's just really interesting to see how, when you come from a country that, like with you're saying, if potatoes don't grow, you don't eat in the winter, and it's kind of the same in the Philippines where it was really hard to make ends meet. And so a lot of that was so ingrained in us. And so I want to go back into that and how I want to explore how did your parents not just like basically really teach you about wealth and about taking responsibility for your actions and in your life?
So I challenge everyone who's listening. The way you look at something is the way it actually is. I don't know how to explain this. Two people can look at the U.S. and look at it totally differently. One person can see the U.S. as there's no opportunity. There's such a disparity of wealth. I mean, the top 1% have everything. And you can have me or my father saying, this is the best country on the planet. I can actually have opportunity here. And I think that's what the immigrants, they have that edge because they come here, they risk everything. And it's funny, as they get older, my mom was saying to me, you can't take risks. And I'm like, Ma, you came to this country, you couldn't speak a language, you worked 2 jobs, and now you're telling me I can't buy an apartment building? I mean, like, think of the logic of that. I mean, you left everything, right? So I think that's what immigrants have over people who are born here. I think they're hungrier. I think they look at this as the land of opportunity. As we're being told that this is an evil country and we're trying to rewrite history, you still have people trying to cross the border. You still have immigrants trying to come here and refugees. There's a reason why, because there is opportunity, but there's a lot of sacrifice and there's a lot of hard work involved. And I think we're teaching our young a lot of things that we shouldn't be teaching them, like the responsibility factor. The government's not there to take care of us. It can't take care of us. This country is founded on individualism and socialism and all these other isms. They take away the individual aspect of what we do. I homeschool my 6 kids. I don't want anyone else to take care of my 6 kids and my well-being. We homeschool. We're Catholic. We are endowed to take care of our child's religion and our child's history. I want to teach my kids everything, even about money. I don't need anyone else teaching them that. And I think that's what we're losing. So as far as for me, I had a great relationship with my family starting out when I was little. We did sacrifice. We did go to clinics for our immunizations because we couldn't afford it when we were younger. I would buy secondhand clothes. We wouldn't buy new cars until my dad, when he started doing better, he got into a business when I was maybe in my early teens, and we started spending a little more money. But back then, I think it was different. Like I said, right now, the opportunity, what people call poor in this country now, 40 years ago, you would have been wealthy. I mean, you talk about cell phones, you talk about having 3 cars, 4 TVs. Back then, you had a rotary phone, you had 1 car, and that's it. I remember house hacking back in the 70s. Everyone talks about it now. We lived in a duplex, me and my aunt on one side, and they both had illegal apartments underneath. So my mom lived rent-free for 15 years. That's how she was able to save. Is it great? Yeah, it's great, but you have no privacy. You're sacrificing a lot. And you have 1 car in the driveway, and you have another car for your tenant, and it's just like my tenant downstairs was my piano teacher, so he'd be playing the piano, and you can hear him upstairs. So is it great? No, but that's just the way I was born. So for me to sacrifice going through the Great Recession and cutting my expenditures, and it wasn't that big of a deal because I was used to doing it, So that I think that's what really instilled me as I was young. There's sacrifice. You can delay your gratification, and if you can put that money away and start saving. For me, the shift, you had asked me, Lee, the shift. Honestly, the shift was when I was listening to Dave Ramsey. And I hate when they start talking about save for retirement, save for your college. For me, that's the middle class mindset. There's nothing wrong with that for the average person that might work. But I want everyone to think about saving for an asset and let that asset pay for that event. For instance, my kids are all going to college right now. I have multifamily properties. The cash flow from those multifamily properties are paying for my children. I can have 1 or 2 properties pay for the next 20 years one of my kids' college education, because I have kids going. My daughter's a junior, and my son's going to be a freshman next year. My daughter's going to be a senior. So for the next 15 years, I want to have 2 kids in at one time. But I have cash flow from these properties. They're appreciating in value. The principal is getting paid down, and I'm getting cash flow. The problem is when we save money, put it into a savings account, that savings gets depleted once the event is over. So I think that mind shift is really important for people who create wealth, to say it's okay to put some savings aside because we need our emergency fund. We need 3 to 6 months put aside. Maybe we need some whole life to start building that cash value. So when we get older, we can tap that. Let's diversify that way. But let's start thinking about buying some kind of assets to create wealth and to create that principal, that money coming in every month from the cash flow to be able to pay for those events.
Wow. I love that mindset shift, because really for the most middle America, it is about saving for the retirement so that when you turn 50, 60, you have something to pull from, which is a great thing to do, obviously. But what you're actually really doing is saving for something that you can tap into now, because money today is really better than money tomorrow, which is really amazing, because then you get to really enjoy life. Like, you're not worried about how are you going to pay for your kids' college education. You have already something that you can tap into. And so I absolutely love that. I want to go back a little bit to when you talked about your streams of income, your streams of revenue. I want to know, what is your most favorite streams of revenue right now? And also, what is your most hands-off stream of revenue that also makes you a good amount of income?
Sure. Katrina, let me just go back to something that you said that was really important. When you said back there, saving for retirement. The problem that I see with saving for retirement, when people have $3, $4, $5 million in their retirement accounts when they retire, they live with the scarcity mindset. People who die with millions of dollars because they're really poor. They have that scarcity mindset that my money's going to run out for me. That's the problem with constantly saving for a rainy day, because when it rains, they're not even going to tap it. They're going to live a poor life, poor. I mean, so we're talking about rich and poor. What does that mean to people? I think the problem is you have $5 million in an account. Your financial planner is saying you can only take $50,000 for the next 10, 20 years or your money's going to run out. That's the problem that I see when people save. It is a mind shift. Now for your question, as far as the streams, my favorite stream right now is the Jake and Gino's, the education aspect of it, because we're building something really cool. It is an active stream for me. I'm doing that day to day. Jake is taking care of the property management day to day. So my passive streams come more from the properties themselves, as far as getting the owner draws every month, but from Jake and Gino and from doing some of this property management stuff, they overlap. So they do overlap. I mean, the syndication aspect of it, being a limited partner on my deals, that's another passive aspect of it, but the property management plays into it. I'll do monthly webinars. So I don't think anything is truly passive. They all really weave into each other, but I would say the education is by far is my favorite. And it started from nothing. 4 years ago, we just started the podcast. We started writing a book, and is it going to work? I think it's going to work. And we just kept going on it. And the great thing about it was, even if it didn't make us money, it still helped us out with the property management. We still had vendors. It gave us the credibility with brokers. Hey, these two have a podcast. They have the #1 multifamily podcast on iTunes. They've written a book. So it gives us the credibility in the space, and it gives us the network and the ability to have an event, put an event on, have people come to that event. So that's why it was started, just for fun. And, ultimately when you learn, you do, and you teach, you do all three of those, you become a much better investor. Because I started learning topics, and I started diving into syndication, which I never would have done had I not been with Jake and Gino, because my students wanted to learn syndication. So how do you learn syndication? You podcast 15 or 20 syndicators, you do a syndication yourself, and then all of a sudden you do it. If it wasn't for the education, we probably wouldn't have syndicated a deal.
Wow. I love that one of your podcasts, The Movers and Shakers. I just want to go back to that, because I love that you celebrate, because as you said, how do you learn syndication? You do a podcast, you learn from them, and then you do it yourself. And a lot of these things that we do in life, we could only read so much, we could only listen so much. And until you actually go out there and do it, you will never learn how it actually works. And so I love that you're doing that. And then you're teaching people how to do it, and then you are celebrating them, and really, which really just does a ripple effect and encourages other people to do even more, which brings me to just how you inspire us right now, because we're new podcasters. and so same thing, we've thought about this, and how, well, who's going to listen to us? I'm like, okay, someone's going to listen, because we have something to share. And so I just love that. That is such an encouragement for us. And just even visiting your site, and I'm like, wow, he's interviewed the people that I love, like books, MJ DeMarco, Hal Elrod. Like, I've read all these books. I like Chris Box. I was just like, oh, so geeking out. To be honest, completely geeking out. So and I was thinking, wow, and he said yes to us. Like, he's gonna say yes to us. So just really thankful.
Well, and that's what it is. It's paying forward, right? I mean, I want to say yes to everybody. Sometimes you can't say yes. You have to have those boundaries, but it's important, because to share your message and to inspire others is important. But the movers and shakers is also important, because you want to create an environment or community where people think like-minded. You don't want to have somebody there saying real estate's risky and you can't do it. So to have a community and an accountability group where, okay, he's doing it, she's doing it, how are they finding deals? And my community is not like being jealous or envious of somebody who closed a 20-unit deal. That's not how the community works. Community works because everyone wants to partner together. And that's an important aspect of it. And as far as the podcast goes, Katrina, we have the same. My wife, every week we record the podcast. She's like, who's listening? So everyone out there listening to the podcast, shoot them an email saying you're doing a great job, because it really means a lot to all us podcasters out there, because we're putting our joy and our love in it, and we're being transparent. And sometimes we're a little vulnerable. I mean, you should hear us sometimes when we talk, because my daughter's editing it, and we're sharing stories about the family, and everyone sees us as, like you say, you go to the website, you think there's this perfect couple and this perfect family, and we all have challenges, right? So to share those challenges and to say it's okay. If you don't take and you don't try to grow and you don't try to get out of your comfort zone, that's the problem. That's why we say stagnant. That's why people are just really upset and they're not really fulfilled in their life, because it's really about the first 4 needs, but then growth and contribution, those last 5 and 6, is what really makes you a happy person. It really does. You know, you see these people who sell their companies for $300 million and then they go into a death spiral because they just got the money. They don't know what to do. It's not about building a business and selling it. It's all about the process. It's not the goal, really. The end result goal. The goal is what your end results are, right? The process is actually getting to the goal. So I think the system of the process is what people should fall in love with, not the end result. So I think people have it backwards, like I did. I would always say, you know what, my goal is to become financially free. That's great. You shouldn't be locked in about the results. You should be locked in about what your actions you're taking. And I try to tell that to people. It's hard. It took us 18 months to find our first deal, and it was a lot of struggle, and I was in the grind, and I didn't enjoy it as much, and I didn't enjoy the process as much. Enjoy that process more than the goal. And goals are always shifting. You will always change your goals. And if you're not, I read Sam Zell's book, and I just finished reading it the other day. And he said the definition of a schmuck is someone who reaches their goals. I love that, because if you hit your goals, then you're done. It's basically you're constantly revising them, right? It's from becoming financially free to growing a business, to maybe buying another stream of revenue, to starting a podcast, to writing a book. It's constantly changing. And maybe you don't inundate yourself like I did, but maybe you have quarterly priorities or yearly goals. I'm going to write a book this year. Okay, it's not going to be an overwhelming process, and reverse engineer that. So to me, that was really enlightening to me. After I read that, I was like, wow, he's right. So think about goals as ever changing, and it's okay if you don't hit your goals. That's not the thing. Just enjoy trying to get to them.
Right. And I think that's actually, that was a quote from everything research-wise that we've been doing on you that I just love. Like, fall in love with the actions, don't fall in love with the results.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that too, I'm just curious, because you've got, like, recently you just closed on 52 units in Knoxville. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. And then you've got the podcast, multiples of them, homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
What are the intentional things you're doing every day, morning, week, that are allowing you to be able to kind of have a hand on all of those, but also, you know, be there as a father and a husband to your wife and family?
So for me, it's been a lot more fun. It's been a lot easier. I work out of the home now. I mean, my office is 30 feet from my house, so I love that. I don't waste any time going into the office. I've been able to build and really attract some great people around me. So I've been able to build a Jake and Gino from the start. The I'm a mentality. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. As an entrepreneur, it's hard because you really have to learn everything. When you start your podcast, you're going to have to know where to record it. You're going to have to edit it yourself. You're going to have to do the show notes. You're going to have to book the guests. You're going to have to do all that work in the background. Ultimately, you know how to do that. Then you're going to have to start outsourcing those elements that aren't going to get you paid, right? And that's what we ended up doing. I ended up outsourcing stuff, and really preparing for podcasts is more important than creating the content. So for me, it's really trying to do those high level tasks. What we've done is we do weekly meetings. We'll do weekly L10 meetings with all our different entities. We created core values. I think everyone out there needs to create core values for themselves, because once they start hiring other people, know what your core values are. Our core values are people first, unwavering ethics, make it happen, growth mindset. You know, those are what, and extreme ownership. Those are our core values. So when we hire somebody, they've got to be, you know, with those core values. If not, they're not going to last. So having all that fleshed out, you'll be able to attract people, and you'll be able to know what you're looking for in a person. I didn't have core values at the restaurant for 20 years. I didn't have any systems in place. You know, it's really about people, systems, and culture. Those 3 things. I didn't have that at the restaurant, and I was attracting me. I was attracting people that, you know, were just there, and they weren't really motivated. They weren't inspiring. And to be a leader, I think you have to be inspiring. I think you have to have a clear message of why you're doing something. And I think you just have to show up every day. And, you know, other things we do, we have the daily huddles in the morning. We have, like, you know, 8:45, I'll get on with all the Jake and Gino team for 20 minutes. We'll talk about what's going on throughout the day. Like I said, those L10 meetings, we send out a weekly pulse every Friday from our property management, talking about the KPIs on each property. So holding those people accountable, and then just really creating content for Jake and Gino, the Jake and Gino community, doing all the podcasts, and trying to get lead magnets, trying to get our name out there, to see if we can have people working with us, and working on our sales scripts, working on our content that we're creating, all that stuff that will generate value, and also creating new content for the community. You know, whether it's writing another book, whether it's doing another video series, all that kind of stuff. More of the high level stuff, and the low level stuff where you work on your weekly L10s with your team members, you can delegate it. Like, I used to spend 5 hours trying to do a newsletter and design it and do all that kind of work. I just said, this is what we want in here. Let's get a VA to do it, or Jen, let's see if you can help me do it. And you outsource that. And then you take a look at the finished work and you tweak it. That was hard for me to do in the beginning 3-4 years ago, because maybe it's the ego. Maybe, as I was talking about my immigrant parents, nobody can do it as good as me. But if you're only doing one thing at 100%, I'd rather be doing 6 things at 80% because you can get so much more done. And obviously they might not be, but everybody out there, maybe we'll get done better. And maybe your ego is holding you back and saying, I need to be relevant. So then find something that you really love to do and gravitate towards that and try to outsource things that are of less value to you.
I just want to go back real quick. You said KPI. Just for our listeners who don't understand KPI,
Yes.
performance indicator. Can
Yes.
you tap a little bit on that?
Yeah. So a key performance indicator, it's in any business, right? So I'm doing a video with Jake. We call it the 4 Ps, right? It's in your business. If one of these Ps is off, you're going to have I don't want to say rocky, but you're not going to be firing on all cylinders. The first one is the people aspect of it. So your KPI for the people, figure out your core values. The next one is the product. If your product is not right, so multifamily, if you've got a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, but you see that you have millennials and they all want 400 square foot units, your product is off, right? So for us, our product, we're dealing with affordable housing. We're dealing with blue collar workers. So that's the product that we have, and we're able to market that. The next one is the price. If you're marketing an $800 apartment and the market's $700, well, guess what? You're going to know you're not renting those units out. And the last one is promotion. Are you actually able to market it? Are you able to market this podcast out to people? Are you getting the message out? So one of those 4 Ps is off, and you can measure and scale all of these. So in the multifamily space with KPIs, what we look for are key performance indicators. We look for our occupancy rate. We look more even diving down into it. We want to see what the physical occupancy is, people who are actually living there, versus the economic occupancy versus people who are actually paying. And usually there's a couple percentage points depending on the market itself. It might be, not 95% physically occupied, but 85% economically occupied. You want to know what the delinquencies are in the month. So in the beginning of the month, let's say the delinquencies are $4,000. By week 2, they better be down. And by week 4, they better be collected. And if not, what's going on? You want to know the number of units that are vacant. You want to know the number of units that have leases terminated early, so you're able to collect that revenue. You want to know the number of unrented vacant units. So you want to know all of these different key performance indicators. The number of what we call guest applications. When a person applies to a unit, okay, the application, how many of those people are actually turned as prospects? So then you'll know, if I have 3 apartments that are vacant, but I've got 10 people that are applying and only 1 person is going to be accepted out of those 10, well, I better get 30 people applying to get those 3. And you want to be proactive. That's what it's all about, trying to stay in front and trying to look at your key performance indicators. And I think as a leader, you're not there trying to demean people and saying, we need to do better on this. What can we do better? It's how you ask those questions, is you want to use these key performance indicators to see where their holes are and try to fix those holes.
Yeah, I love that you're very intentional about the growth process, and also just that last thing that you said. It's not about, hey, like, let's do better. It's really about reframing, hey, how can we work together as a team to do better? And in that sense, it's almost like you're really giving an opportunity for your team to step up to the plate. You're actually forming an environment and a culture where people feel good about the work that they do, because it's not about demanding for a result, but it's all about the teamwork that you're creating in your team. And so I actually also want to touch on, you're obviously giving a lot into your community and all that. I want to touch like your area of giving and all that you do, or maybe some of the things that you're doing to be intentional about giving into other people's lives as well as you're building your wealth.
For us, it all started back in 2005. We went down to Harlem. There's a group of Catholic brothers that are called the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, and they had a great mission. I mean, for them, it was awesome. You go down there, and they're in impoverished areas. So they're in Harlem, they're in the Bronx, they're in New Jersey, they're in Guatemala, they're in different friaries. And we started cooking Thanksgiving for the community. There's about 150 people. So every Thanksgiving for the last 15 years, we've been going down to there. I bring my whole family. We'll cook for the community. And it's great because they have new postulants coming in every year. And young men don't know how to cook. So I'd give them cooking lessons, and it was a lot of fun. I actually wrote a cookbook for them. I was like, yeah, I'll give you some recipes. And I ended up writing a cookbook for them. So that was one of the great things. So you give to get, right? I gave it to them, and I wrote it for them, but ultimately it's awesome because it's something that's a legacy for me that my kids will always see. Because now my younger kids don't have that experience at the restaurant because I've already been out of the restaurant for 4 years. So some of them have already lost that, but that's always part of me. And I've been a really pretty big benefactor with them. I've been a benefactor with the Sisters of Life. I'm obviously Catholic. Being pro-life is really important to me, and just giving to them because they take in women in need. And I think that's really important because when you're a young woman who's scared, you don't have any options. I'd like to give them that platform to be able to say you have a choice, and that's important to me. There's so many other things. I mean, I have family and friends that are able to fly down here and come on vacation. I can pay for them. It's one of those things where I wasn't able to do that 5 and 6 years ago. I'd stress out. So for me, that's able to. And the other thing for my family, I mean, when you have 6 kids and you get a dental bill for $15,000, maybe I can wait a few months. Now I don't have to think about that. You know what I'm saying? You laugh, but I had my 5-year-old. She had this is a few years ago. I got for my wife, it was her teeth, and she got a really big estimate. And I just said to her, I'm not paying for that. Right. And I didn't mean it in that respect, but when money's tight and you have a lot of kids, it's a lot of stress. So being able to do stuff for your family without even thinking about it, being able to have your friends, your kids' friends come down from New York and bring them to Disney and paying for everybody, that to me is awesome. You're creating experiences for other people that they would never, these kids would never be able to go to Disney, let alone with my kids, and be able to do that. That's an awesome thing.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. I love that. Just being able to not just provide, but you're really like giving experiences to people, just the whole going down and cooking for people and Thanksgiving. It's not just about dishing out money, but it's actually you're actually inviting your kids and you're teaching your kids these values by doing it and being with them and having a face-to-face interaction with the people that you're serving, which is just beautiful.
We can sort of live in a bubble because when you live in middle America, you're middle class. You don't see what goes on in impoverished cities in downtown. And even though Harlem is gentrifying and there's brownstones are $2 million, there's still a lot of people who are living in what we call single SROs, single residence, and they're living on government assistance and they have drug problems. And it's really, Thanksgiving is weird down there because in New York City, it doesn't feel like a holiday. It's really supposed to be with family, and these people don't have anybody. So they all come to the Friary, they all hang out there, and it's just a weird experience. And my kids, they would never see that side if they weren't able and part of that community, right? And I think that's important to see that. And they'll never truly, hopefully, experience that kind of pain or that kind of. But if they actually see that and they see that they're actually fortunate, hopefully, to have some gratitude. I mean, that's ultimately to have the gratitude and to be able to give those people, like I said. Food is great. We'll make penne vodka. We'll make turkey. Bring some Italian to it, right? And and for them, to have that kind of food and to have that kind of nourishment. But also, my kids, a lot of them are musically talented, so we'll bring down a guitar. We'll play music that day, and just to enjoy the day. And it's quote unquote with family, with other friends, to get them out of their apartments and to get together. I think that's really cool. More than anything else, forget about I know it's part of it. You have to pay for it all, but just to get them together, it's a really cool experience.
Wow. Really awesome. Yeah, it's awesome.
So for our listeners in that, to have a wildly wealthy life or to start pursuing that, could you share 3 actionable tips that they could take to start working towards that goal in their life?
I think the first thing that everybody should do is pick up the book Mindset by Carol Dweck. It's really important because they talk about a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And I always had a growth mindset in a lot of aspects of my life. And I'll give you an example. When kids are in the book, I love this. When kids are told that they're really smart and they're really intelligent, and then all of a sudden something happens and they come upon a challenge and they can't do the challenge, they're going to say to themselves, I can't do it. Because the fixed mindset says that if they do it and they fail, they're dumb. That's the fixed mindset. The growth mindset is, here's a problem. Not sure how to do it. Let me figure it out. The growth mindset is always about growing and about learning and about challenge yourself and getting out of your comfort zone. Whereas the fixed mindset, we all know this. Some people are so brilliant, they don't want to take chances because if not, they're going to be seen as dumb. So if you read the book, it really will open up your mind into a lot of things because honest, I'm going to be completely honest with everyone. Jake and I are really not that smart. We just aren't. What we do have is we have the tenacity.
Yeah.
We have the ability that, I send out an email. It's okay if I made a mistake. I can send out another one. We can do a podcast. If we make a mistake in the podcast, we'll be better in the next one. We commit and then we figure it out. That's what a lot of people don't have because I don't know whether it's their ego. I think it's more the fixed mindset where they don't want to take chances. They go out there and they self-sabotage themselves or, hey, I tried. I failed. I tried. They didn't really try. So read that book. I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is to have clarity on what you want in life because most of us, when we ask, Katrina, what do you want in life? Katrina will probably say to me, no, I don't want this. And I've done it myself, but I'm not asking Katrina what she doesn't want. I'm trying to ask her what she does want. If we can focus on what we want, because when I got out of the restaurant, I was focusing on what I didn't want. That's what you're going to get. You're not focusing on what you do want. What I did want was financial freedom. And actually more than that, finding my soul purpose. That's what I really wanted. I really wanted an abundance mindset. So if you can focus on what you do want and getting that clarity, it's really important. And I think the third thing is I think everyone out there should really think about life coaching, getting a life coach or going to a life coaching school or doing a life coaching program and challenge yourself because it's a lot of hard work. Most people don't want to do this because you're diving into yourself. You're going to see your weaknesses. You're going to see your energy blocks, all those voices in your head telling you these things. And you can diagnose yourself and you can say to yourself, where are my weaknesses? What do I want in life? What you're going to get the clarity. Why are you doing something? And it'll give you a lot of tools for you to learn and to use, whether it's empowering questions, whether it's, being conscious of your thoughts and being conscious of where you're resonating with your energy. If you're pissed off all day, are you going to call the broker? I don't know. Why are you pissed off? Dive into these things and you can figure it out. And life coaching has so many great things. Because most of us think if I learn how to do multifamily, I'm going to get into multifamily. But I have a lot of students who have the block. They can do the mechanical, but it's majority of it's psychological. It's going on inside of them because anybody can learn what a cap rate is or what an NOI is, or anybody can learn how to raise capital. But staying there long term and knowing why you're doing something, I think is much more important.
Yeah, I love that. I love these tips. They're very actionable, but it's also, there's so much depth to each one of them. Like they can probably, get that mindset or growth mindset book and it goes into like a whole, rabbit hole of like what else they can do, and really develop that. So thank you for sharing that. We're going to go into our quick 10 rapid fire questions. Really excited about this. These are questions that we asked our guests. We want you to say the first thing that comes to your mind. Don't censor yourself, and we'll be quick and concise. Some of the questions relate to our podcast theme, and some of them are just fun things that we want to know about our guests. So, number one, if you could choose one book to live by, what would it be?
Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich.
Your personal hero, living, deceased, someone maybe you know or don't know.
Probably my dad.
Your dad. Number three, the one thing you intentionally have to do every day.
Kiss my kids.
Oh, I love that. That got me. I love that.
Yeah, good. One hobby that brings you the most joy.
Oh, I used to love gardening. I haven't done it in a while, but it's just a love gardening.
Yeah.
You have a green thumb?
Yeah, I used to really. It was awesome. It was great.
Awesome. Number five, most rewarding thing you've done for someone in need.
Wow, there's so many things. Just paying for people to come down. I mean, that experience has just been great for me.
Yeah.
That's awesome. First movie quote that pops in your head.
Oh, wow. That's a good one. I'll be back.
I'll be back. Okay.
I don't know why. No idea where that came from, but oh man.
All right. Number seven, last big purchase you made for yourself.
Oh, wow. I would say it was my car that I'm driving right now, but I bought it 5 years ago. So it's just a Porsche, just a truck, but it's 5 years ago. So I got to step up the game on that one for me.
It's okay. Food you cannot live without.
I would say steak. I got to have it at least once or twice a week.
Yeah.
Nice. Number nine, what is your spirit animal?
Spirit animal? I don't know. Expand on that. Spirit animal.
Animal that you resonate with the most. Like if you were an animal, what would it be?
Oh, that's a great question. I would probably say a dog.
A dog. Oh,
Yeah.
loyal, loving.
Yes.
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 Any particular breeds or no?
You know, I just love greyhounds. I love the way they look. The big greyhounds. They're such beautiful dogs. And there's one in my neighborhood that walks around. He looks so loyal. He rubs up against his owner. He's just a cool dog.
Yeah.
Really
I
awesome.
love it. Okay, so number 10, finish this sentence. If I'm stuck on an island by myself, dot, dot,
I got to call my wife.
dot. Cool.
I mean, these days you'll probably be stuck in an island with a cell phone. So yes.
Yes. At least I hope so. Because I'm gonna say, what do I do? I wouldn't know what to do. So I'd call her, and she could help me out with that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. All right. So, Gino, thank you so much for being with us. We really love chatting with you today. Where can our guests find out more about you? And if there's any encouragement that you would like to tell our guests about their giving, where to give, what kind of charity, or just actionable things that they can do to give more into their communities, what would that be?
That's a great question. I just go on and start. I mean, go to a thrift shop. Go downtown. Go to a local food bank. See what's going on in your community. It depends where you resonate, right? If you like dealing with the elderly, maybe go to a nursing home. If you like dealing with children, maybe go to a children's hospital. See where you'd like to serve. I mean, if you're a big pet person, maybe go to the local pet shelter. Wherever you think it resonates with. For me, I just love the Friars. I think they're awesome. I mean, I think they're an amazing bunch of men who give up a lot in their lives, and it's a hard time to do that because the world is full of so many wonderful things. You have cell phones, you have so many luxuries in life, and to be able to give that up and to be able to serve others, that's an awesome endeavor. So that's what resonated with me and helping them out. So just go out and take a look and see what you love, because it's really about passion. Because if you really enjoy what you're doing, you're going to enjoy your giving. You're going to give more, and you're going to be more creative. And it's not just giving money, right? It's giving your time and your treasure, and being creative with that. And the listeners can just go to jakeandgino.com. You can go to jakeandgino.com/honeybee. Take a look at the new book that we've launched, and to get some videos and get some trainings on there. And on the bottom of the page, we have all our podcasts out there. So really easy to find us online.
Awesome. Do you have information on Friars? Like, is there information on that our guests could look into?
Yeah, you could just go. I think the website is Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, and it's great because it's all about poverty, chastity, and obedience, and which is great about it. It's hard when you're a young man going in there and you have to be obedient. You know how hard that is. Most of us want to do our own thing. So for me, I have the utmost respect because I've been an entrepreneur for the last 25 years. I've been the one telling people what to do. So actually give that up as a young person. There's a lot of admirable qualities, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. We really, really appreciate your time. And yeah, we love chatting with you. I'm sure our guests will really love this podcast.
Thanks, guys, for having me on. I appreciate it. Take care, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care. Wow, that was really awesome. I loved hearing from Gino. And just to think that for many of you guys out there listening, he started this 5 years ago and went from just a few income streams up to 24, and who knows how many more in the next 5 years he'll be able to grow into. And I really love the analogy of planting a seed. It's not always tomorrow you're going to have that harvest, but definitely planting the seed, it gives you the opportunity to bear the fruit and to collect on the fruit. Really awesome lessons that he shared.
Yeah, and I love that when he started, he also had that bad partnership deal, but he did not allow that to stop him or make that as an excuse. He recognized it and he realized that he has to take full responsibility for that bad partnership deal, that it takes two. And that happened because he didn't do his due diligence in vetting his partner. So I love that he recognized taking full responsibility, and also just the fact that he shared about not being afraid of losing, because a lot of people really are afraid of losing, and because of that huge fear, then they lose out on the gain that they are possibly going to have. So yeah, we just encourage listeners to think about the gain instead of think about what you're going to lose. Well, next week we have Justine Gonzalez. She is an educator. I love her entrepreneurial mindset. She is also a woman investor like me, and she is a podcast host. So we're really excited to have her on. Make sure you check it out.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Wildly Wealthy Life. We hope that this episode has helped you take another step towards living fully, giving freely, and building a legacy that deeply impacts your community. We'd love to hear what you think about today's show. Please leave us a review or like us on iTunes and YouTube, and click the subscribe button so you won't miss a show. You can also visit us at wildlywealthylife.com for today's show notes. See you on our next episode. Thank you, and may you live a wildly wealthy life.